Just recently, the French Army, they announced that they're testing Boston Dynamics robot, the robot called Spot, in combat scenarios. And this is a bit of an issue because the one thing with Boston Dynamics and any robot they build, in the terms and conditions, it specifically says, this is one of their only conditions, it specifically says that these robots cannot be used to harm or intimidate any person or animal as a weapon or to enable any weapon. And using these robots in combat scenarios, that starts to get to be a gray area. You start to think, is this used to harm someone or intimidate someone? Or, I mean, not directly, but if you have a robot that is used for reconnaissance and it's, scouting out an area before troops go in, while it does protect troops and that's good, the downside is that, at least for Boston Dynamics, is that it is used in a combat scenario. And the whole point with Boston Dynamics is to build robots that can help people. And like, they even built an arm that could attach to this robot, to the Spot robot now. And it's supposed to be so it can help people, not to be really used in military or combat scenarios or harm anyone at all. So I think it gets to be a bit of a fuzzy area when you start including them in combat scenarios of any type, whether they're used for reconnaissance, whether they're used to carry things, whatever they're used for. If they're used, that starts to get a little bit of a gray area. But anyways, right now, the way it happened was this Spot robot specifically wasn't sold or supplied by Boston Dynamics. It was actually supplied by a company called, I believe the company was called, anyways, it was another supplier. So essentially what happened was this supplier got the robot from Boston Dynamics, and then they supplied it to France's foremost military school, and that is where we first saw pictures of it. So according to executives at Boston Dynamics, they said they had no idea about this. They learned about it as soon as all of, like you and me and all of us learned about it. They said they're reading it at the same time. They're not clear on the exact scope or what is going on in this engagement, how the robots are being used. According to this article, The Verge tried to reach out to them, see what exactly was going on, not to Boston Dynamics, but they also reached out to the French military school. They didn't respond. They didn't explain what it was really happening, but what it appears like it's used for reconnaissance. And according to some interviews, they said that when Spot was in action, it did take a little bit longer, like using the robots slowed things down a bit, but it would have saved lives. So that's where it gets to be the gray area, because Boston Dynamics, they don't want people to, they don't want their robots to harm or intimidate people. But at the same time, if this robot was used, it would have actually saved lives in this combat scenario. Right now, they're using it for testing and in training exercises, but still, they said it would have actually saved someone's life if it was being used. One problem with it, though, is that it ran out of battery. At one point during when they were testing it, it ran out of battery and they had to just carry it back. So while that sort of proves the point, at least these models specifically are not designed to be in these sort of scenarios. Obviously, if they were actually used in real situations in combat, they would need to have much longer battery lives, because you can't just have a robot die in the middle of the battlefield or in the middle of a raid or something like that. It can't just die and you have to carry it back. So we'll see what happens here, but currently that is what they are doing with that's what they're currently working on at Boston Dynamics and what is going on with the French military.